Hi, my name is Moshe and I'm the publisher of the Jewish Link.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Kratz. I'm editor of the Jewish Link.
And you're on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast.
So, Moshe, I don't think that these guests need any introduction to you, but I guess I'm doing the intro.
Actually, they do need introduction.
Okay.
So that's
Right. So we just learned that Karen Orgen and Mendy Schwartz, Mark Mendy Schwartz, may not be as known to the community as they are to us.
Yes.
But we want to celebrate these candidates for council.
Yeah.
4 terms, I believe.
This will be my 4th time.
Okay, 4th time running.
We have to formally introduce them, too.
So please, we'd like for Mark Mendy Schwartz and Karen Orgen to introduce themselves and tell our community, I guess, who they are,
Well,
how long they've lived here.
Sitting council members with Teaneck council members, and they'll tell us about the rest of them. But also, just we do have to disclose this. Mendy
Yes.
is also my partner and co-publisher of the Jewish Link, so that makes him a little bit different than our typical guest.
Yes.
So,
But I don't think you've ever been on the podcast,
No.
Mendy. So
I
thank you for
haven't.
joining us.
Excellent. So I'll jump right in. My name is Mendy Schwartz, Mark Schwartz. I am been on the council for 13 years. I'm running for re-election. This will be my 4th term. I'm a 29-year resident of Teaneck. My wife's an almost 40-year resident of Teaneck. 4 children, born and raised in Teaneck. 1 married, lives in 1500 Teaneck Road, which I'll talk about that in the buildings a little bit later on. I've had the privilege of starting the Jewish Link with Moshe about 11 or so years ago,
Yeah.
11 plus years ago. Before being on the council, I was on the planning board for 6 years. I've coached about 27 teams of soccer and Little League. I'm a 25-year volunteer firefighter in River Edge, New Jersey. Teaneck's a paid fire department, so River Edge is where we volunteer. 22 years on the ambulance, and a saying I like to say in the ambulance, and for those who don't know me, is I'm riding on the ambulance today, and you better hope not to see me. So I've done over 1,000 calls on the ambulance. I'm sure Karen has done thousands more. On top of that, I actually came to Teaneck for Torah Academy, and I never left. And if I grew up in Muncie, and if you ever come to Teaneck, and most of us are not from Teaneck, you don't want to leave. And here I am 30 years later, and it's been a great ride, and we're looking forward to continuing it.
Karen.
Hi, so I am a 50-year resident of Teaneck. I'm a little bit older than Mendy is. I moved here and started Mariah in the 2nd grade. Grew up on Dickerson Road, and president of the ambulance corps, met my husband Eric there. I was president. He was a probationary member, chased me for 3 years, caught me, and we ended up buying a house 5 blocks from where I grew up. We have 2 daughters. One just graduated from Stern. The other has 1 more year of college, and then she is off as well. Both went to Ben Parah Yosef. One went to Frisch. One went to Mayanot. Was former co-president of Shari Tefillah in Teaneck, member of the planning board. I ran for council in the last election when Mohammed Hamaduddin stated that he was not running. I was asked to run for his seat. It was supposed to be a 1-year term for me, and now I'm running again. I grew up in Teaneck. My father was president of Mariah, president of Torah Academy, built a mikvah in Teaneck, president of B'nai Yeshurun, and planning board member and chair, board of adjustment member, town council member, labor attorney for the township, my hero, my idol. Passed away too young, and we were always involved in Teaneck politics in my home. Tuesday nights were for watching council meetings, and just a thing for us. And now my family watches council meetings Tuesday nights. We watch them from up close, and this is Teaneck. We love Teaneck, the highs, the lows, but yeah, this is where we are.
I think actually I'll go off script for a second, but I think the first time I met you was because you donated a kidney. Mm-hmm. And it was like, that's sort of who you are. That you were like, you said you had a beautiful story about your reason for wanting to donate. And it's basically emblematic, I think, of who you are. You're like, hey, I have this kidney. It's due for donation, and you gave it away.
I was a match for my dad,
Yeah.
and I couldn't give it to him in the end. He passed away, and so 10 years later, I just felt like I had already made peace with giving it away. So September 22nd actually is coming up. Yes, Sunday night we're having an ice cream event on Cedar Lane. Everybody is welcome to join us, but that is my kidney anniversary. I was Renewal's 366th donor.
Wow.
Now they're well above 1,000 donors. But yeah, it was the best thing I did.
Inspired by you,
Many,
most likely.
and from Dickerson Road. Dickerson Road is a big hotspot for people who donate kidneys. So yeah,
We are told actually by the people from Renewal that Teaneck has the highest rate of donation after I forget which Hasidic group, but we are like number 2.
I believe it. Teaneck's a great place, a great community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us what are your priorities for this coming election? What do you want to talk about as goals for this term? I guess what should we look toward? Why should your residents, your fellow Teaneck townspeople look for in your next term? And what is sort of become goals for you together as part of your candidacy?
Okay, so first of all, as you know, I really speak my mind. I don't like to necessarily tell people what they want to hear. I tell them what they need to hear. We weren't planning on running again. Obviously, from a Jewish Link perspective, from a Jewish aspect of America, it's been a rough time. It's been a rough year. And it's not the year in which Jewish incumbents sit there and say, I'm retiring. This is when our people need us the most. And, people may look at this on a national level, but in reality is local is where so much happens, whether it be paving the roads or staffing your police or fire, which has nothing to do with Judaism. And I make it clear, when I sit on the dais, I represent everyone. But when all of a sudden, whether it be a mosque, whether it be a shul, call me and say, we need to get our permits for the summer, or for our school per se, because we want to open up in September, or we have holidays and we want to get that new addition to the temple opened, or we're the mosque and we want our senior citizen center to be rezoned. That is where you need people in the power to make it happen. I don't like to sit there and talk and talk and talk. I strongly believe never let perfect get in the way of good enough. And if we were to all of a sudden sit here and talk and talk and talk, nothing will get done. Now, if you look around town, we have numerous mosques, numerous shuls, and numerous mosques, churches, and dozens of shuls. And they're expanding, they're growing. Our schools, our yeshivot, are growing. Working with our public schools needs a ton of collaboration. And I consider myself a doer, but in reality is I just talk about doing. Karen's actually the one that gets it done. Mm-hmm. She's the one. People sometimes say to me, well, we see what you do, but what does she do? She actually makes it happen. I'm the one that just is the mouthpiece and just promises the world. And I'm like, okay, I need you to make that happen. So that is a little bit of an overview of what we do in general. And what do we want to do? We want to continue doing it. For everyone who knows that tries to rent an apartment in Teaneck, it's expensive. There's a list. And if you want to try to buy an apartment, you can. There's virtually no condos available for sale. And I like to tell people my goal is to get Karen's mother to sell her house. We have a very large, long-term residents in Teaneck who are aging out, but there's nowhere to go. And we need to keep on building. And I know that sounds bad. Don't say that out loud. But let's face that. Not only do we need the buildings, we need the money that the buildings bring. 2017 is when you began seeing new construction throughout Teaneck, from the new hotel to 1500 to Avalon to Teaneck Square to simply a Walgreens on Cedar Lane. Those buildings have bringing in right now recurring $8 to $9 million annually. So very simply, if I didn't get it from them, where am I getting it from? Your pocket. Every dollar I collect in new construction is a dollar I don't have to collect from my existing and current residents. Those are my initial short-term goals. Keep it going.
Karen?
Goal for the upcoming goal, my number one, we need to redo the DPW. So it's been every council person's goal going back in time. we need to rebuild the DPW, and it's expensive. We need to be creative with it. We have this wonderful new township manager. For anybody who hasn't met her yet, Jackie Hashmat. Probably the most important decision we made as council members was who to hire to replace Dean. Everybody loved Dean Kaczynski. He served the town for so many years. We made a wonderful choice. If we could pat ourselves on the back, she's a phenomenal person, a creative person. She brings a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience from Hackensack, and she's got a lot of great ideas. So our number one priority going forward, whether it'll be in the next few months or the next 4 years, is going to be what to do with this DPW, and then hopefully what to do with the property down there, and how to bring in more revenue to the town. And Mendy's 100% right. Taxes go up when you can't bring in revenue to keep them down. So, people say they want responsible building. Every building is responsible. Every building goes through a process. It goes to the planning board. Every inch of it is reviewed and planned. And, we need to bring affordable housing to town. We have requirements for affordable housing. We need to bring housing for older people to move out of homes and for younger people to move into when they get married. And these are the things that we have to work on and we have to provide. And those are goals. Those are really important goals, and those allow us to bring more services to town, more recreation, fixing up the parks, fixing up the fields. Everything is related, and everything costs a lot of money. So you need to bring in the revenue to provide the services, and that's what we do day in, day out.
Yeah. Moshe, do you wanna talk about that one question we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things. First of all, Mendy and Karen and I, we talked about, actually, one thing I was going to ask you about Cedar Lane. Cedar Lane is, when older people think about Teaneck, they say Cedar Lane. And then, for some reason, I'm not sure I know Cedar Lane is still the center of Teaneck, but for some of the kosher consumers, sometimes the perception is maybe it's shifted a little bit. Any thoughts about, and I know there've been some talk about Cedar Lane, any specific things you guys want to talk about, hope the council can get done or help achieve in the next few years? Or I know you've always been far thinking. I know that you have a long-term plan for Cedar Lane.
Okay. I'm going to probably get myself into trouble.
Okay.
I don't know what the tornado likelihood is in Teaneck, but we do need a tornado on Cedar Lane. Interesting facts about Cedar Lane. As much as anyone who reads the Jewish Link thinks about Cedar Lane, and they're like, it's 97% leased. It may not be leased or occupied by stores you'd like, but what's crazy is, and challenge me with that number, walk up and down, and Karen and I walk every inch of this town on an almost daily basis at this point. And you will see that every store is leased. Some of them are maybe not renovated yet, but they have been leased. Very few unoccupied stores. Now, what do we want to see? We have some disadvantages with Cedar Lane. That's lacking a lot of depth in the property to build backwards. We're also have many multi-generational owners who have owned these properties for years, who don't know how to develop. As someone being in real estate, I have no idea how to pour a foundation. Why am I going to risk millions of dollars building something when that's not my business? Okay, so now your response is, so get them to sell. Well, let's talk about capital gains. That building's worth $5 million, not after you have gains on that. So these people are getting their money, these landlords are getting their money every single month. Stores are paying their rent. And it's become a challenge. And what we've started to talk about and heavily talk about and almost close to completing is the peripheral. And we have a project that's coming close to being dug shovel ready almost, and that is the American Legion Drive by the old Stop and Shop, where someone says we don't like to. We have parking lots upon parking lots. And one thing to talk about, you've mentioned this, our development in town doesn't cut down trees. The buildings we've done have been vacant industrial buildings, vacant environmental problem buildings, DPW. There is no trees we're taking down. Now, we have acres of parking lots, about 4.5 acres of parking lots between Beverly Road on one side, American Legion on the other. And we're coming close, and Karen spent a weekend working with the neighbors on getting a plan that is going to satisfy the neighbors, provide affordable housing, provide equal or more parking, provide outdoor space for our farmers market, and of course provide market rate housing as well. And very simply, if you build it, they will come. Now, all of a sudden, we put in hundreds of more units, and the last plan is about 364 more units, and they will go there and shop. And people love to say, well, I don't like the fact that there's 3 7-Elevens in Teaneck. Someone does, because someone invested in that money, or the nail salons, or their banks. So if we bring people, the stores will follow. The stores do not come first. It just doesn't happen.
People come. Yeah, the Cedar Lane curse. I hope that's the way to dispel it. Mm-hmm. I hear that. I like that.
And this doesn't replace Stop and Shop. It brings more customers to Stop and Shop. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%.
I mean, a lot of people are like, stop taking away our Stop and Shop. That's
so
like,
that was
that's
always
like the whole perception.
Correct. That was always this rumor that we're shutting down Stop and Shop. No, it's the opposite. Stop and Shop is a partner in this development. They own some of the pieces. They actually don't own their building, but they own some of the parking lot. They're a partner in this land swap to get this done, because very simply, they woke up and realized, maybe in first grade, 360 apartments will actually bring more money, more shopping, more revenue. So every time and every year, and it's been every year, that we hear about Stop and Shop closing stores, Teaneck has not been one of them, because they also are holding out for this development.
Okay. Good to know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things we really wanted to talk to is, as journalists studying Teaneck and embroiled in all of the debates, is this year has felt very different for all of us as Jewish Americans, I think, and many of us, I think probably all 4 of us were born in America and like grew up here and are citizens. But what has been different about this year that feels different, as people on the council, as politicians who are representing us? Like, how has this year, I would say specifically since October 7th, been different for you?
It's felt very different. The community is very engaged. People are tuned into everything that's happening, and they've been incredibly supportive. We get feedback from people, whether we're walking on the street and they come over to comment, they lend support, they reach out after meetings. We have texts during meetings, after meetings. People are thankful and grateful, and some meetings they say, I don't know how you sit there and you listen to this. Thank you for being there. Thank you for spending your time on this. Appreciative, supportive, questioning, engaged. It wasn't like that the first few years for me, for my term. I assume for Mendy for all the years that he was there. But
you mentioned before we spoke that you felt alone sometimes. As a council member.
Yeah, you felt like you wanted people to understand what was happening, and now it's like you have the strength of the community on your shoulders, and the support, and it makes such a difference. You feel like there are people sitting there with you who understand what you're going through, and it's not so easy. We get interviewed sometimes, and you feel like you're starting from square one, explaining how Teaneck politics works, and it's not like that anymore. People really understand. They understand the players. They understand the cast of characters. They understand the people that call in at every meeting or get up and speak at every meeting, because really that's what happens. Teaneck has 43,000 residents, and you don't hear from most of them. Most of them, they want a great life for their families. They may have a tree in front of their house that needs trimming, and we help with that, or a pothole that needs filling, or they have trouble with something, they reach out, we take care of that as soon as we can. But really, there's a cast of characters here that you hear from at every meeting. They get up and speak their minds. Sometimes we don't, just because they want to be heard, they need to be heard. But people in town are really starting to understand what is going on here and whose voices are being heard or want to be heard. And it's nice. It's nice that people are engaged in their township and in their community. And for us, it makes the hugest difference to have everybody involved and engaged.
I just want to say, I've been talking to Mendy for years about this, and I hope that we can go back to the days that raising chickens in one's backyard is the biggest council issue. Mm-hmm. I really hope so. But I've been saying to him for years, when I would watch the council debate, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and this is before October 7th, and I want you to just, it's just, Elizabeth's a Bergenfield resident, but as a Teaneck resident, I'm going to say, yashikah to being able to do what you guys do, and that's just, we're talking about just sitting there and being able to go through it. That's forgetting about everything else you guys do. Yeah.
Right.
So.
I think that the community has galvanized itself behind your jobs and your roles. I think it's become more important. We've seen the development this year of the Bergen County Jewish Action Committee and different kinds of people coming together to say, hey, what these people are doing, they need help. And I think one of the questions that we wanted to also add and ask are there places on the dais near you that you might encourage others to run for? How can people get involved? What else can be done? I think the Jewish Action Committee and the RCBC working together with the town on a lot of different issues, especially related to the hate that's come in, is useful. But what else can our fellow residents be doing actively to make their impact and assist?
So BC Jack has so many different communities. So many different committees. They have, if your skill set is speaking, if your skill set is writing, there are so many different groups within BC Jack that they can use help with, and they can identify people who would be really great candidates for different roles within the town. So if anybody's interested in that at all, their leadership is wonderful and strong and well spoken. They would be great people to reach out to, and the RCBC has been phenomenal and supportive, and they've been wonderful in getting the community galvanized and engaged. There are many spots on our advisory boards that are coming open now. Most of the seats on the advisory boards are 2 years, some are 4 years, but there will be advertisements coming out on the township website now. A lot of the seats are coming open, and the personnel subcommittee on the council is going to start interviews now for seats that are coming open in January. So anybody who has interest, Senior Citizen Advisory Board, Community Relations Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation, Shade Tree, there are many. Take a look at the website, reach out to us. Anybody can get involved in anything that they're interested in, and everybody should. There was a group marching in the parade this year, the 4th of July parade. We've never had that before. People are really trying to find different ways to get involved in the township, and it's a wonderful thing.
And you said want to. I think the real answer is they need to get involved. And I'm going to take it one step further in looking, I started with my resume. Getting involved could be a coach in Little League. That coach all of a sudden becomes, this field is in bad shape. Who do I reach out to? And Karen's now is the liaison to a new Parks Advisory Committee. She's worked quite a bit the last 2 years on getting our quotes to start turfing fields. We just opened up our second brand new turf field for Teaneck Southern League. We're about to do a third field, Sportsplex being the first, and her committee is deciding with members of every league what should be the next field. What ambulance corps. There's so many ways to get involved in Teaneck, and those lead to the next step. Whether it be you got involved in the ambulance corps, you became the president, the shul president. It goes up. It's almost like the minor leagues leading up to the major leagues, and it's the way government really goes in general, up to the top. So I have 2 coffee meetings coming up hopefully next week with residents who I literally met at council meetings that just want to understand. And that will lead to their further involvement in so many different ways that if there is not a way in this community that attracts you to get involved, the issue is you, it's not us, because there are so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm. It does seem like there are pathways toward leadership and toward, needed roles of, even we had, it even started in some ways with people waking up and watching council meetings and watching what was happening and saying, hey, I want this council meeting to be about chickens in my backyard, or the streets, or pothole repair, or the town cleanup. And those have been of great value. Mm-hmm. People saying like, hey, let's make our township not about infighting about a war 8,000 miles away, but maybe a little bit more relevant to who we are here. Beautiful. Yeah.
And chickens actually did that. And one of the reasons
Chickens,
chicken
yeah.
passed, and I'm gonna put it out there, I was against chickens.
Chickens passed?
Chickens passed.
Wow.
And the reason
Because
chickens
the guy
passed
wore the outfit.
because Jesse Long, your credit to Jesse Long, but more importantly, his son came out and said, "Stop talking about the war." And if you go back on the record from around November, October to January time, it's all we spoke about. And then what we realized, what does chickens do? Chickens brings the dais back to talking about Teaneck. And while it is important to talk about the war, talking about the war from the dais is not changing anything. Last I checked, Netanyahu is not watching on Tuesday night and saying this is what we now need to do because 16 callers wanted this done. But chickens is really what brought everyone back. And again, I was against it. I am against it, but it brings us back to those core important core important hobbies or needs or wants that people want in Teaneck, such as the roads, such as the fields, and if it works for you, chickens.
We also didn't throw it in willy-nilly. We checked with Englewood, which is our closest
Right, they
city.
have.
They
I've
have
seen
it,
their
and
chickens.
the only complaints were roosters, which are still illegal in Teaneck. So we didn't just throw it in there. We did our due diligence
these are
and our
laying
research
hens.
with
Interesting.
the health department. Their roosters are still not allowed in Teaneck. Since we passed it, we've had no complaints. The health department has had no complaints. But these are the things that bring neighbors together, and it just felt like the timing was right for it, and so we brought it back up.
Wow.
I guess the next question is, first of all, our community has definitely been galvanized. I'll use another word. We're also a little scared. We're also it seems like the summer has been a lull for the last few months. Now they're heading to election season. It seems like they have returned. Just tell us a little about the council. I've stood with you guys at some of the Palestinian protests. Just tell us about your experiences on council, kind of going through some of these protests, and the council's role, so to speak, in terms of reaching out to all the full community, which I know you guys do.
So a few years ago, they started on the municipal green. This was back before October 7th. There was a Shabbos with a protest, and the rabbis asked everybody to stay away, and they did. There were one or two people who came out. We were inside the municipal building watching. We walked over there. And we found that when protesters come out and they don't have anybody to yell at in front of the municipal building, they really run out of steam. They stand in the heat and they don't have anybody to scream at, and that's the end of that. And they planned a second one a week or so later, and we thought we were so smart. We had just finished giving the vaccines at the Rhoda Center, something we were very proud of, and we planned a clap out for the staff that had been there vaccinating the whole town, and we brought everybody there instead, and they had their event at the municipal building, and like a tree falls in the forest, they did their thing. They were hot and tired, and then they went home. In response to that, we had a wonderful parade. We walked down River Road to Cedar Lane, up to Sagamore Park. We had a concert. We were very proud of that, and we were done. And since October 7th, the protests were definitely the car rallies. The protests at Keter Torah were much more challenging and scarier and much more invasive into our community and much worse. But all summer long, there seems to have been nothing, whether that is in response to an election that's coming up and people who are running who may have had control over protests. And we have not had anybody speaking up about Gaza at our council meetings, the last 3 meetings. It's possible that somebody or some groups running now had some control over that, and not one person has shown up. Could be a result of that, could not. We don't know. But what happened yesterday, we don't know where that came from, what that was. We had hoped that everybody would stay away, because not to give any fuel to the fire, don't give it oxygen, let them do their thing, ignore them. And again, today, same thing. There's something going on today. I hope that nobody will show up. I know yesterday nobody from Teaneck showed up. Everybody listened, and whoever showed up, 10 odd people, were not from here. But we don't react to them. So a shul is a different story. If they come to one of our shuls, we will be there. But municipal green, let them come, let them do their thing, and.
a lot of people have the question of what the council's role is for some of these protests. I mean, like that's, I'm saying, Mendy and I talked about a little bit offline, the role of the council with these kind of protests. And I know it's been a very sensitive issue, but I think you articulated already the role of the council. Can the council do anything to tamp down or can anything be done from a public level? I mean, people are just worried, like, why are they even allowed on our streets? Why are they even allowed on our public spaces even? So I'm just saying, is there a role for council in terms of responding, or for the police department?
So it's still the United States of America, and people are entitled to express themselves, and we can't, as much as people say you do need a permit to gather, but once, we've reached out to organizers, we've requested that they fill one out, and they still are allowed to assemble. So the police are ready for anything. The manager has made sure that the police are available and ready for any possibility, but we can't force people to disperse. So.
The First Amendment, or the right of free speech, doesn't mean it's the right to hear what you want to hear. It's the right for them to say what they want to say, whether you like it or not. And that's a problem. And I know Teaneck people are when they scream "Free Palestine," oh my God, how can they say that? Yes, they can say that. It's a very fine line. What isn't a fine line is when they vandalize a car by Heichal, or when they throw something at someone at Keter Torah. And that was where there was a curve. Admittedly, there was a curve of enforcing that, which took some time, because our police, those are our ground troops, right? They need guidance from above. And above is not necessarily your chief. Above is going to be the Bergen County prosecutor, the state attorney general, or even the federal government officials. And what the council did do, and it was very frustrating because people were really scared, was trying to get that information. And our manager and our police chief were begging for guidance from the state officials and the county officials. And admittedly, the county officials also want to make sure they're doing the right thing, because when you do the wrong thing on a First Amendment, the next thing you know, you have a very large lawsuit. And talk about oxygen. That is some major oxygen. But what we did get the right guidance, and what we did do after several car rallies is they started giving tickets. The car rallies are legal. I'm sorry, they're legal. You don't like the hakafos that they take from Patterson? It's not your road. They're legal. What isn't legal, if your license plates are blocked, if you're throwing things out the window, if you're carrying flags out the window. And that's what we started doing, issuing tickets for that, both via drones, tickets in the mail, and in some cases, people pulled over, arrests for outstanding warrants. So nothing is guided towards what you're saying, because yes, you could put a flag on your car. It may not be a flag you like. In most cases. But what we're able to all of a sudden do is turn that tide. So when they got a text the next Sunday, let's go to Teaneck again. Well, the 7 guys that got that ticket, who really don't have the money to pay for it, they're like, I'm going to stay home. And the guy that lost his car is like, they impounded my car. And other guys like, may have a problem with my, a little arrest I have. And all of a sudden, it died out. Now, we haven't fully understood why it died out specifically, but we'll continue to take all these steps necessary to have that calmness that we had throughout the summer. And that was why last night, what the council, after, and this was in the Jewish Link, actually, Rabbi Friedman wrote a whole letter about this is what Karen was doing every single Saturday night with Rabbi Friedman, with the town manager, with the police chief. And we did it again this Shabbos. We went to an event at a church and we spoke to the police chief. And we said, let's get on our game. They're coming back. Let's make sure we turn up the heat on them in a legal fashion. And our enforcing the law helps them enforce the law. And we also then went ahead on Saturday night and we begged people, as of the RCBC and as of BC Jack, do not come out. Do not feed it oxygen. And it worked. Now there's another one set for today at 4:30. And I have a feeling on Monday at 4:30, it's also not going to be a big event. And after a while, it just gets old. It gets old for them. And we hope that everyone in the community realizes that number one rule we learned, the first thing we learned in the fire department, in fire academy, is don't give it oxygen. The fire dies out.
Right.
I think we're now ready for the Kiddush talk in the community, which is really it's beautiful that you guys are here running together. But there are 3 slots in the Teaneck election. So tell us a little about you guys running together, and also the third slot as well, the third opening.
That's the first time we heard this question in 5 minutes.
I said it was the Kiddush talk. We get asked this question every few seconds.
It's the Kiddush talk, the way to Kiddush, the way back from Kiddush, the way to shul, during shul, not during shul, during leaning. Did you?
So for now, we're running the two of us. We trust each other implicitly. We have history together from before sitting on council. Our families are very close.
Hold on, can I interrupt? I
yes.
thought that Mendy was the one who forced you into running or pushed you.
He did,
Okay.
but
I shouldn't say it that way. Convinced you.
convinced
Ellie,
and Ellie.
Convinced you.
But our families have great history. I rode with Nomi on the ambulance corps. Eric and Mendy are great friends. Our children are great friends, although for a few years not so much because Benji took Allie's diary and read it out loud at a Shabbos lunch. No. But they've since made up, yes. We've decided the two of us would run together and get closer to the election. We will decide who it is that we would like to serve most with as a third person. But for right now, we're going to just the two of us.
Right. Absolutely. We want to focus on what we know best, what our community knows best. There's some other good candidates running. They both love our support. More people running than seats. And we want to make sure that right now we have our community's best interests at heart when we're talking about people from our community that are asking for that third seat. So stay tuned.
So, I was going to say basically a stay tuned message for okay. So just read the Jewish Link, obviously, and we'll be in touch. But I think that's a fair message, actually.
And I think that third vote needs to be earned. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Why else are we here but to encourage people to really do their research about each candidate who they put their support behind.
And I think it needs to be earned constantly and not just during election season. I think that's something that I hope we'll see going forward. The Jewish community is strong now, and it's united, and it carries a lot of votes, and people need to keep that in mind, not just during election season, but all the time. I say this a lot, we're good neighbors. We try to be good citizens. We try to volunteer a lot as people. We keep our properties up. We try to care for all of our neighbors. And we just want to be recognized as that. We don't want any special treatment. We just want people to understand, we do have a few things that we need. We have holidays on certain dates. We would love for events not to be held on those dates so that we can participate. But we just want people to understand that we're here and we want to be considered a good part of the community, and we'd like that from any candidate to understand that that's what we are and that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when's election day? What's the...
Not soon enough. It's interesting. It's Tuesday, November 5th. TNJ does a great job doing the get out the vote, but more importantly than Tuesday, November 5th, early voting ballots who vote for mail, and I vote by mail, start coming out. They start getting mailed this weekend. There's also in New Jersey a early voting, not by ballot, but early voting in person. We're lucky that there's only 7 or 10 locations in the county, maybe a little bit more, but Rhoda Center is one of them. And an interesting stat, and I'm sure Teacher and Jane, if you haven't had them on, probably should. They can tell you that if you look at the early voting for the primary that we just had, the early voting that came out of the Rhoda Center was greater than the other 8 of locations combined.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to say it's all Teaneck or Bergenfield, but obviously anyone's welcome to vote in any of those locations. But Teacher and Jay has done that job of getting out the vote, whether it be for local, whether it be for schools, primaries, whatever it is. And there's no reason not to vote anymore. Between the mail-in, between the days and days of 1 week of early voting in person, or the day of. Further, there is something that I believe in the link wrote about. You can now vote by email. Kids who are going away for the year could vote by email. Yeah. That's something huge. It's something new. We're going to keep on working through it. This is our first election that we're pushing it. And with the help of BC Jack and TJNJ, we're going to keep on working on it because there is no reason that I can think of that you don't have 100% participation. And if you can vote, you've got some severe other issues of medical that you just can't, you must be in a coma. Because we're not asking for one day. We're not asking for a week. We're asking September 22nd. It comes out. We get weeks upon weeks of voting. So please go out there and vote.
And we do know that municipal elections, particularly in Teaneck, have been decided by often less than 50 votes, certainly less than 500. So we need every single one.
We also have an important Board of Ed election, which is the bottom of the ballot this year. So there are 3 seats open every year for the Board of Ed. There are 5 candidates running for 3 seats this year. Jenny Levy is running for Board of Ed. She is a former principal, teacher. She's a family attorney. She has a child in the public schools now, and she's working really hard. She's a phenomenal candidate.
Okay, so we have to do we have to do something on the Jewish Link with her.
Yeah.
We will. Okay. So the basic message is everyone has to vote. We know that, and I think I just want to say, as a voter, we are. Many of us feel the same way. We still have to make sure we get the vote out, but that's. I mean, I'm hoping for a. I'm endorsing, as a publisher and a friend, I'm endorsing Mendy and Karen, and I'm hoping that our listeners, readers do as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news. And follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.